So, welcome back to Everything Marketplaces, where we talk with founders and leaders from some of today's top marketplaces. So, this is episode 99. It was a really great group chat that we just had with Cody Candee, who's a co founder and CEO of Bounce. So, Bounce is a marketplace that's creating the largest retail network powering local services inside businesses. It started by providing local storage for luggage along with package acceptance at local businesses. They recently announced their $12 million Series A round, which is led by Andrew Chen at A16Z. So this is a really great chat with Cody, where we got to hear the founding story at Bounce, how it scaled and evolved as a marketplace, more on their fundraising journey, and also had a really great Q&A for those on the chat. So I really enjoyed this conversation. I know you're going to find it a great watch to the end. So Cody, welcome to the group chat. I've been really interested in Bounce since I first heard about it. So I'm really excited to have you join us here and learn more about it as a marketplace today. Before we jump into things, though, I think it might be great if you could start off by sharing a little bit more on your background, though, for those that don't know you.
Yeah, sounds good. It's awesome being here. Thanks for the invitation. So, yeah, my background, I started my career at Intuit doing product management in the rotational program. And in that experience, I had a lot of opportunities to build products for different geos. I was mostly based out in the Bay Area, but also lived in India for a year and the UK for a few months and San Diego for a little bit. And so, fast forward now, I've lived in more than a dozen cities and a handful of countries. And I've always been driven by this idea of just like building for global scale. And building and thinking about, what are the sort of cultural nuances from one place to another, and how do you just scale something really big? And so that's led in nicely to Bounce because we're building a platform where we partner with small businesses, tap into their extra space and power new revenue streams. So the first one being luggage storage. So we've scaled that to about 1,000 cities in 40 countries, and we're serving small business owners on the supply side, and then with luggage storage, it's mostly travelers on the demand side.
Yeah, that's awesome, and thanks for sharing your background with us. So going back, to the very beginning, though, what was the founding story for Bounce?
Yeah, so the aha moment came after a little bit of context. So the context was after traveling around a lot and living in a lot of different places, I kept minimizing what I owned, just like a couple of suitcases of possessions in the whole world. And I loved that sort of freedom of being able to go wherever and make decisions independent of my things holding me down. And the light bulb moment for me was I was going to meet with some colleagues after work one day on a Friday for a happy hour, and someone said, I'm going to join, but I'm going to go all the way back home just to drop my bags off because I don't want to carry them with me the whole night. And that's like an hour plus. That's the cost of a taxi or an Uber. And it's just like, wow, just for that, just for like, it's like planning your day around your things, right? And so that was a light bulb moment of, wow, what if there was a way to just, what if there were a simpler way to do that? And the Bounce vision was born, which is, what if you could just summon your things away and then summon them back to your phone as your remote control for your things. So it was a big vision, not yet the product. And I was just thinking about this world, this cloud storage for the physical world kind of idea. And then fast forward a couple of years to when I was starting Bounce, I was thinking, all right, that's a big kind of crazy vision, but what's a slice of that we can start with, without delivery drivers, without, all the extra complexities of storing people's things long term. And so basically I started prototyping Bounce in late 2017. And the original week one prototype was I put up a landing page and it said, come pick up your bags, store it until you want it back for like a day or 2 days, whatever. And folks, and then we bought some AdWords and watched to see what would happen. A few minutes later, we get a phone call and I was shocked. Someone said, hey, can you come pick up my bags? I was like, wow, this is a barely legitimate website that we built in an hour. And but I answered the phone. They said, yeah, can you come pick up my bags? And I was like, yeah, definitely. And then they said, how much does it cost? And I said, let me check with the driver network and tell me where I would be picking up your bag, where we would be picking up your bags from, etc. And then I said, okay, hold for 5 minutes. And then I was like, how much should I charge them? And then that was the V1 of Bounce. And basically the purpose there was to validate the hypothesis that people would be willing to hand over their valuables to a stranger off of the internet with a little, with a little more than that trust. And so that was validated. We did a dozen of those kinds of pickups. And then hypothesis number two of, why would the business succeed versus fail was, are we able to do this at scale? Are we able to do this economically? And long story short, the answer there was no. I was huffing and puffing around on a bike, picking up people's bags. And I was like, yeah, I don't think there's an hourly rate where this could, be really feasible, except maybe at big scale. But it's tricky. And I had heard a lot of warnings, cautions about the difficulties of operating logistics in a driver network. And so the next piece was, all right, how can we build a version of this without needing the delivery drivers? And that's when the idea of having people drop off their things in a store came about. And then we started building the V1 of Bounce, which is luggage storage in local shops. Just go on our app or our website and find a location near you. In cities like New York, we have over 300 locations now. So you can find one generally very close to wherever you are. And then you just go drop off your bags there and pick it up later. There's more pieces of that vision that we'll build on later, but this is the product that we've now scaled with to 1,000 cities.
Awesome. I love the founding story, right? Put on hold and access the driver network.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So yes, so I definitely want to jump into some of the different challenges that you've kind of faced, and some of the hypotheses and whatnot, as you mentioned. But I guess it'd probably be helpful. Can you give us like a high level overview of Balances in marketplace today?
Yeah, absolutely. So on the supply side, we have all different kinds of shops. Unlike DoorDash, that's just restaurants. We have some restaurants, we have bakeries, we have yoga studios, we have shipping stores, we have a DVD rental place, and basically we can tap into a long list of supply. So the supply opportunity is just massive. And then on the demand side, folks using Bounce for luggage storage or short-term bag storage. Typically, they're traveling, and maybe their checkout time is not. Maybe their flight is not for a while, but they just checked out of their place, or they're reverse on the check-in side, and they need a place to store their bags. Maybe they're staying in an Airbnb and don't have any options. Maybe they're staying in a hotel and they're exploring or have meetings in a different part of the city and don't want to have to backtrack to their hotel to go pick up their bags there. So basically, the customers will simply go on our app, see all the locations, and they can just book it instantly there. Folks also use Bounce for going to events. You can't bring bags into venues, concert venues, sports stadiums like Madison Square Garden or Wrigley Field in Chicago. So we'll see a spike in demand during events as well. So yeah, that's the gist of it. We also started building vertical number 2 as well, package acceptance in local shops. You can ship all your online deliveries to a nearby Bounce location. And that one is earlier. We haven't scaled it up as much, but it taps into a new user group and it helps our small businesses make more money.
Yeah, so I would love to touch on that a little bit more. So what led to you kind of expanding categories with that, or I guess actual offerings?
Yeah, so when the pandemic hit, we lost all of our revenue, and it went from like straight to zero. And fast forward a couple months, that was still the case, and we knew that small businesses were also hurting. A lot of our stores were going out of business, and so we thought, our mission of making small businesses extra revenue streams is even more important more now than ever. But luggage storage, while travel is not happening, is not a good one for a while. And so we kept building. We kept our foot on the gas with luggage storage, particularly working on long-term initiatives like new supply acquisition as well as SEO, so that on the other side of the pandemic, we would come out strong. But it was also a great time to reflect on, our purpose, helping the small business owners. And so I sent out an email to all of our small businesses with 10 or 15 ideas of more different ways to help them make money. Ideas we've had for a while, but it just seemed like a particularly great time to work on it. And so one of those ideas, I think the first one on the list was package acceptance. And we also had a customer banging on our door saying, hey, he was booking luggage storage and then messaging customer support and saying, hey, instead of luggage, it's going to be, I'm going to pick up packages there. And so we said, okay. And then one day he said, can I buy like 20 of these in advance? And that's when I was like, all right, the customer demand is there. And then on the supply side, the small businesses are definitely looking to make more money. When I sent out that email saying, what are the ways we can help you? Are you open to these new verticals? Most small businesses said they were open to package acceptance. So then we started building a minimal version, and off we went. We got some initial traction there, and it looks like a promising vertical to continue down the path with.
Awesome. Yes. So just for some context too, I guess, how many markets do you operate in? Because I think you mentioned 1,000 cities?
Yeah, 1,000 cities. We go more city by city rather than country by country. So in a city like in a country like Germany, we have like Berlin and Munich and probably Frankfurt covered. We'll start with the biggest, most popular cities, especially key travel destinations. In the US, we have a long tail as well, thanks to some partnerships. So we'll have, a lot of small beach towns in Florida, for example. But generally, we expand on a city by city basis.
Yeah, that's certainly quite the scale. So what's your I guess like a new market kind of launch playbook?
Yeah. So the way that we think about new markets is we're extremely data driven. So we will look at where our customers are searching. Early on, when we were only in New York back in 2018, customers would say, "Oh, this was a great experience. I wish I could use Bounce in other cities." So we prioritized city expansion pretty early on compared to maybe the typical marketplace journey. Unlike a company like DoorDash that you really want that deep local penetration. For us, if someone uses us in New York, they were ready to use us in the next city, and so we went broad fast. Then we scaled all over the US in 2019, and then 2020 was the year we would expand all over Europe. COVID hit. We waited for a few months to see what would happen, and then we decided to expand all across Europe anyways in 2020. And now we have Europe broadly covered, the US, I should say all of North America broadly covered. And then we also expanded to a handful of cities in Australia and Asia.
Yeah, that's definitely that's awesome to hear. So what is the team like?
Yeah, so we're around 30 people right now. We have the growth team, which is the demand side. There's a couple of folks on that team. They are working on content generation and things like that, basically building our website traffic. Then we have the sales team, which is our supply team. They're the ones that connect with the small businesses and invite them onto the platform. Then we have our product and engineering team, which is self-explanatory. And then we have operations, which we didn't have until recently. We actually scaled Bounce to over 10,000 customers a month until with only one customer support person. And now, and then after that, things started getting a little overwhelming, and we've now quintupled our customer support team to 5, and are building out more of an ops organization just to support all the extra scaling work that's happening.
Yeah, and I believe you guys recently closed around too, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Congrats on that, by the way. So,
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. So what's I'd love to learn a little bit more, because I believe in the article it did mention the growth, which is pretty incredible to hear about. So what would you say is kind of contributed to the growth recently?
Yeah, so a little context here. 2021, we grew 38x within the year, which is wild. It means we're reinventing the company basically every quarter. And what contributed to that growth, because that's off the charts, like 5x growth in a year is fantastic. 38x is just crazy. So 2020, our business was like crushed by COVID, and we kept our foot on the gas. with all of our initiatives, knowing that we wouldn't get results in 2020 because no one's traveling. If we rank higher on Google, no one's searching in Google yet. So, if we have new stores on the platform, but no one's traveling yet, we don't get anything in 2020. But we knew that when the pandemic would pass, we would get 2 years of growth in one. So basically that's what happened. 2021, we started seeing, after the vaccine became widely available, we saw people started traveling again, and then our revenue just started climbing. And in 2022, we're fortunate that has continued at almost the same rate. And it's just been fantastic. I think we also benefit from folks who use us in one city. Now they really can use us in multiple places, so we'll see higher repeat rates and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, 30x growth that's pretty incredible. So especially when you kind of compare it to the benchmarks out there.
Yeah.
So what is the day-to-day like for you as a CEO, running a kind of hyper growth marketplace?
Yeah, it really does change every month. So, February, March, it was more around fundraising, and in this past month, it's been a lot of hiring, a lot of interviews, and later this year, it'll be really leading some of the product work on new verticals. So yeah, no quarter is the same, probably no month is the same. It definitely keeps me busy.
Yeah, are you guys a remote team or?
So we are half remote, and then also we have an office in Lisbon, and we have roughly half of the team that works there. So, and that's folks from all over the world. So we've had folks from the US move to Lisbon, you keep your US salary. We have folks from the UK and France moving to Lisbon, and Bangladesh even. And so, Lisbon's kind of a fun place where we can kind of all get together and jam, but we also hire remotely. So we can hire the best talent wherever they are.
So you did mention, or we kind of touching on, the fundraising, right? So I would love to learn about, what that fundraising journey was like, because you definitely have some pretty incredible investors with, A16Z on board.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to say early on, it was really hard for us to fundraise. We got a lot of probably 100 plus rejections. We did an angel round in 2018. And I just heard no so many times. I heard people saying, people would tell me, like, that's great that you got some traction in New York, but I think this would only work in New York. And then I was like, oh, come on, I got the traction. I think I even tried to fundraise before we started building the product as well. And people were like, oh yeah, no, I'll wait until you have some traction. Then I got the traction. I said, oh no, it would only work in New York. So it really was a slog the first couple of years. And then the past few months, I actually met Andrew Chen from Andreessen Horowitz, who led our Series A, and I met him in 2018, and we had an awesome chat, and he was so insightful on marketplaces that I was like, wow, this guy, amazing investor. I want to spend more time with him and learn more nuggets, because when you're so immersed in your business, it's actually kind of hard to find folks who uncover insights that you haven't yet yourself uncovered. And he had uncovered 4 of them in one 45-minute meeting. But he passed on bounce in 2018, and we lightly kept in touch. In late 2021, so a few months ago, 6 months ago, I was reconnecting with someone at A16Z. I was asking Olivia, who works closely with Andrew on the investing side. I asked her about we've kept in touch a bit too. I met her actually independently of Andrew. I had a question for her on the Marketplace 100 list, and she's like, oh, let's catch up. And I told her about our revenue growth, which was just really wild in 2021. And from there, she said, oh, do you want to reconnect with Andrew? And I said, yeah, of course. And then Andrew and I reconnected. And I think that, just like in 2018, we really hit it off and we're jamming. And then he asked me if I wanted to meet more of the A16Z team? And I said, yeah, sure. And then I met a couple more folks. And then from there, they offered to, they said, why don't we do your Series A round? And I said, that sounds great. So this fundraise was easy, but previous ones were just a slog or didn't even happen.
Yeah. So was this more of a preemptive round? I take it, or?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. By the way, yeah, we actually had a group chat with Andrew recently. It's pretty incredible. So
yeah,
he's great. Cool. So we're going to get into questions here because otherwise you and I'll just go on talking about marketplaces and whatnot here. And I know we have quite a few, but before we do, so you have some pretty great experience, building and scaling a Bounce. So do you have any specific tips maybe for early stage marketplace founders that might be helpful?
I think one thing I always come back to is this idea of building for each kind of increment of scale. So if you have an idea and you don't have any customers yet, just like, how do you go get that first customer right away? But like one customer, it doesn't matter how unscalable it is, just get that one customer. And then the next level of scale to think of is 10, right? It's like 10 isn't that much, but the way to get 10 is slightly different than 1. And then 100, how do you get your first 100 customers? And then 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, etc. So I found that to be particularly helpful for just like, at the end of the day, you don't have a business unless you serve customers. So how do you just get to that point as fast as possible, that next kind of milestone as fast as possible?
That's great. Hey, Davey, do you want to jump on?
Thanks a lot, Cody. It's super interesting. Marketplace was so awesome. I have 1,000 of questions. I'm just going to try to narrow to 2. The first one is, you were talking about a new product using Bounce to ship products basically straight to local stores. How competitive would it be compared to a DHL or like those big logistic company for the customer? Because I guess that he has to pay for the shipping and then pay for Bounce. So can you tell us a bit more about this?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was born out of, as I mentioned, a customer who was like, I really want to use Bounce for this. And so I interviewed that customer, and what came out of that interview was what he really valued was having one single location to receive all of his packages. If you go with DHL or if you get packages from UPS, generally they'll have local pickup spots. UPS has the UPS Access Point program, so you can pick up your packages in a local shop, but only UPS packages. Then you have to go somewhere else for FedEx. This customer who I interviewed said, whichever carrier sent me the package determines, he said, which hell I have to go through today, because he'd have to trek across Manhattan to fetch that package from wherever it was that, whichever carrier it was dropped it off at whichever location. And so he said, I want one singular address for all of my packages. We priced it to be $20 a month for 10 or 20 packages, or $5 a pop. So I think that we're definitely going to be experimenting more on pricing, but for the convenience of having just one place, we've been able to attract a lot of customers that that really value that convenience.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Super interesting. Yeah, I have a second question is regarding the insurance. That's something I never really get to know before. So how do you deal with insurance regarding the number of parcels that you have to deal with? How do you approach insurances to tell them, look, I need your help to insure like parcel all across the world, knowing that we don't know what can be in it. So to protect as well, like the local shops, because if there's drugs or weapons or whatever, can you tell us a bit more about the insurance side? Like how do they charge you? And how do you approach them for this amount of parcels that you have to deal with?
Yeah, so security and insurance on Bounce with all the partners we work with is the topic, and I'll answer for luggage storage and package acceptance. So kind of layer one is we put a lot of we give a lot of authority to our small businesses. If someone brings in a bag and the store feels uncomfortable with it, then at the time when the customer is dropping it off, the store has the right to ask the customer, hey, can you kind of show me, can you open your bag, show me what's in it? And the store can also reject it. So we partnered with an insurance company, and they gave us a big policy that covers, theft or other types of things that may happen. But it has a high deductible. And so the way that we did it is, we said, let's get some data. Let's see how often bad things happen. And then we'll kind of build the right policy off of that. And the good news is bad things almost never happen on the Bounce platform. We've seen some people try some things. There was one guy who dropped off a bag and said, can I, I have a laptop in here. How does the insurance work? And the store felt like something was very fishy. And so she said, this backpack, it doesn't feel heavy enough. It doesn't feel like there's a laptop in it. Show me it. And the guy freaked out, wouldn't show her the backpack, and then ran away. So that was someone who was a scam artist that we never even, Bounce never even had to deal with because the store caught it on the store side. Fortunately, the frequency of incidents is so low that, we deal with things on a case-by-case basis. We had someone's handle break, we sent them $20 or whatever it was. And then for big catastrophic things, like if there was a fire or a flood and we lost 50 bags or 100 bags, that's where our insurance company would help step in and cover all of that. That's on the luggage side as well as the parcel side.
That's a great question. Let's see. Hey, Zach, do you want to come on?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And Cody, thanks for your time. Appreciate it. It's a cool story and good job scaling it and getting to where you are. So wanted to loop back to what you mentioned earlier, is just kind of the slog of the 2 years, right? It's like, okay, it was pre-product, go build your product, get some traction, then you had some traction. They're like, well, only New York City, yada, yada, right? So that 2 years, can you explain and maybe it would help, is this your first time fundraising? If it is, if it isn't, kind of the background of how that impacted the first kind of 2 years. And really the core of the question is coming down to, like, how did you mentally work through it and keep the company running through that period?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was my first time fundraising. It was my first real company. I've dabbled around with other things in the past, built some little things in college, but nothing too serious. Bounce was number one. And I had talked to a lot of friends, maybe they had started companies, and some folks are able to raise right out the gate. You even hear stories of people who fundraise before they quit their jobs. And early on, I was so jealous of those people. I was like, oh man, if I could never not have a salary, that'd be so great. But unfortunately, we did not have that. I did not have that luxury. But when it came to our first fundraise, I just asked a lot of friends who had some experience. Who do you know? What's the best process? I read everything that I could online about it. There was some good stuff from Paul Graham. A lot of so many articles out there. And here's the thing: there are some timeless principles. Like investors do respond. A lot of investors do respond to FOMO of some sort, but then there also are a lot of parts of fundraising that aren't timeless. The fundraising context, the fundraising, the way you fundraise becomes outdated very, very fast. Fundraising today versus fundraising 6 months ago, very different. Fundraising in 2019, when we did our seed round, we raised a $2 million round. And then when I would talk to people who started companies in 2020, 2021, $2 million was a very small seed round. And then many more people were, if they were raising, less than 3 million, they would, they'd start with a pre-seed round, even like a $4 million pre-seed round sometimes, right? So fundraising just changes so fast. So you want to learn what's timeless, but you also want to kind of keep your finger on the pulse and understand, what does the current situation look like?
Yeah, thanks. And I guess how did that impact you as in an individual level, from a personal level? I mean, was it really tough kind of getting a bunch of no's and having to re-strategize based on what the market's telling you? Or, how did you continue to pay yourself and keep your spirits up?
Yeah. So Yeah, it definitely was.
Assuming they fluctuated, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it definitely was tough. I think what kept me going was we had some customer traction and folks were excited about the product. So it was a little bit easier for me to say, all the people telling me no, I think they're wrong. But yeah, you'd hear things like, oh yeah, like the frequency of usage is too low that you'll never be able to build a real business. We had so many people pass on us, and you take those things seriously. These are smart people who've seen a lot, and you say, wow, like is because we're a less frequent product and the amount people spend per transaction is low, like is that kind of a death wish to the business? And so yeah, I really spent a lot of time thinking, like really taking what people said seriously, but also just kept building. No one had fully convinced me no yet. They convinced me of some of the challenges we might have, um but yeah, we just kept going. And also, I think another thing that kept me going was the big vision for Bounce. I feel like um, I feel like all the different things we want to build on top of the Bounce platform was just so exciting that I was just thinking, if we just keep getting more traction, things just keep working a little bit more every month, then we'll be able to go towards that big vision that we have. Um, so yeah, and then I would say also a lot of the things that you hear too, like the way to make money as a VC is you want to bet on stuff that is non-consensus. If everyone thinks this company's hot, then the price gets bid up super high, and VCs don't make nearly as much money. You need to bet on something that no one else believes in. And also Peter Thiel in his book 0 to 1 says the same thing. What do you believe that no one else believes? And then start something based around that. And so I would say for a lot of this period where I was hearing a lot of no's, I was also thinking a lot about, hey, we're onto something that, a lot of other people just don't get. We're no one's going to believe in us, but we're still going to build. And then, we'll just prove them wrong later and it'll be like, wow. And so, yeah, really happy to say our early investors have made like a really fantastic markup. And we're a company with real revenue. And, I think that everyone who came on board will do well. So really stoked about that. And, I've seen other companies come out of the gates with like a crazy high seed valuation. And then that company went on to do well within the next 2 years and raise at a higher valuation. But employees and early investors still didn't make that much money because that first valuation was so high. So anyways, I guess I'm rambling a little bit here, but had a big vision.
That's helpful. Yeah, no, it's really helpful. So I appreciate it. And yeah, it's good to hear the feedback and in your experience. So thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's thanks for asking that, Zach, because I was actually gonna ask. Yeah, Cody, I was really interested to learn more about what that was like, facing the kind of being pretty challenging to raise to then now having a preemptive round. So
yeah, we to put it bluntly, we ate a lot of shit for a lot of years, and then when we finally had some good traction, we did our seed round with General Catalyst. Then the pandemic hit, and we lost all of our revenue again. And some investors said, you want to do something else? And so then it went back to eating shit for another year and a half.
You're getting a lot of head nods here. A lot of us can relate to that. So yeah, cool. So I actually had a question for you myself. I want to jump in here really quick. What were some maybe like non-obvious problems that you've learned that you've been solving for, when you launched package acceptance maybe?
So yeah, I think initially I also was thinking, hey, if people can just send their package to the UPS store, how much need is there? So I think the idea of just maximum convenience, get an alternative address where you can get all of your packages. That was certainly one thing. And then there've been some other things too, like in the prototype, in the very first version, we just built something dead simple. And then you put it live, and then you'll see behavior like some people will ship a package and not be able to pick it up for like 2 weeks. And then the stores say, I don't like having all these packages sitting in my shop for 2 weeks. So then you need to build in, late fees or timelines, or, even just reminder notifications for the customers to come pick up the items. So, yeah, I would say another thing too is all the, for stores that have like one owner employee, it's really easy. But for stores that have a lot of employees, you need to make sure everyone else is on board. All the employees are trained, in other words, and that you have a really easy process. So for package acceptance, we built a flow where stores can print out a QR code and put that on the wall in their package room. And then whenever they get a package, they just scan that, check the package in, and then it's done. So having to build things really easy and think about all these different use cases, you can really only learn it once you've already put a product out there. I think that's why the MVP, the lean startup approach is so helpful, because that's the fastest way to get to those learnings, is to just get those first customers right away.
So that actually had, when you mentioned the employees at the local businesses, that actually had me, kind of going and thought, I guess, question of, are these like SMBs, or are they also, are you, I would say, from like how you're acquiring some of your supply, are you going to like franchises?
All kinds. It's SMBs. We do have some franchises on there. We have the UPS stores nationally on Bounce. Those are all locally owned. And yeah, basically for us, what's most important is velocity of new supply acquisition. So if we started out thinking, hey, the way to grow this network is with big partnerships. Big partnerships take sometimes years to close. So sometimes the folks that get to join Bounce on the store side are the ones that are kind of the easiest to get in touch with and move the fastest, because as a startup, you can't really wait 3 months for someone to make a decision. And we have a lot of great potential partners out there that are just kind of like sitting on the fence. But yeah, we like the folks that move really fast, because when someone joins Bounce, they'll often get people coming into their shop to use our services within a day, sometimes within hours. So it's pretty cool.
That is really cool. Cool. Hey, Justin, do you want to jump on?
Yes. Thanks so much again for hosting, Mike. And Cody, thanks for sharing your experiences. Actually, first question is maybe related to something that you just mentioned, and that's, it sounds like you have some strategy where when you onboard a new store, you use them to then get more users. So I was wondering if maybe you could go into a bit more detail on how you kind of generally get user growth and get more users onto your platform. I guess the demand.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do try to get demand from supply where possible, but our pitch to small businesses is we do all the work for you except for storing the bags. So we'll send people in with pre-booked reservations, and so generally speaking, we're bringing in most of the customers. That said, once a store has been on board for a couple of months and they're a trusted partner, we'll often start to activate some of these network effect loops. So we'll put signage outside of some of these stores, big sidewalk signs that say, store your luggage here with Bounce. And so then we'll have folks who will, travelers with their suitcases walking down the street, and they will see the sign and they'll say, oh, cool, I'm going to store my bags here. They'll walk right on into the shop. So now we do have supply that drives demand. But I would say most of the demand we generate ourselves.
Okay. And that is it. Do you have one kind of specific channel that you like social ads or email marketing? What have you found works really well for you?
Yeah. So our number one channel is organic search. Folks will search luggage storage San Francisco. They'll see Bounce there right at the top spot. They can click in, see all of our locations. We have over 150 locations in San Francisco. And then they'll book, show up to the shop.
Cool. So I am currently hiring. I'm looking for a growth marketer. And I was wondering if you have kind of any strategies you like to employ when hiring a talent, especially early stage, because you want someone who's not too senior that, they don't kind of do the nitty gritty stuff anymore. So yeah, I was wondering what you found works for you.
Yeah. So my experience hiring on the growth side is limited, but has been successful for the couple of folks we brought on. So yeah, we ended up hiring more on the early career side. Our first growth hire full time was someone who was a couple of years out of university, and we worked a lot with growth advisors, and basically, we found someone who was really high potential on the employee side, early career high potential, and then basically gave her the playbooks, gave her the KPIs, and let her run with it. And then she had the mentorship of the growth advisor. So that worked really well for us. The growth advisor is actually in this community. His name's Tyler Quill. He is the CEO of Gigster and has built a lot of, he's built, especially on the growth side, a lot of marketplaces. He was at WAG. He started a company called Vettery, and he's just awesome. So we learned a lot from him.
Sorry, how is his last name spelled? Tyler?
Quiel.
Thank you. And then you mentioned KPIs. So that leads into my next question. I was wondering what your favorite data points were to look at when determining, I guess, overall marketplace health. Yeah.
So our top metric as a company is basic. It's revenue. It's GMV. And then, on the growth side, we'll look at web traffic. We'll look at things like that. On the supply side, we actually differentiated between, rather than store count, we said target store count, because if we sign up a place in the middle of nowhere, it's not going to do any business. So we kind of define some parameters for what would be a target store. So that's the metric on the sales side.
Cool. Thank you. I have some other smaller questions, but maybe I'll shut up and let some other people get in. I really appreciate it, Cody. Thanks.
Awesome. No, those are some great questions. Hey, Justin, do you just want to share really quickly what you're working on for some reference?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm essentially building like a super app for sports. So our goal is to become a one-stop shop for athletes. We essentially do three things for them. We help them match with other players based off sport, skill level, location, help them join or build a team, and then we help them book a place to play. And that last booking piece is the marketplace component. We only launched that actually on January 31st. So this whole kind of marketplace side is pretty new to us. So far, it's been going pretty well, but I'm obviously learning a lot through the community and through people like yourselves sharing their experiences.
Awesome. That's super exciting.
Thank you.
Are you starting with one particular sport?
We found a lot of success with volleyball, actually. Our go-to-market's kind of funny. We're even just renting locations and then hosting pickup games on our platform that we then push out to the community. Because a lot of people struggle with getting good pickup volleyball games going because there's kind of like a skill level requirement.
That's awesome.
Cool. Hey, Pratik, do you want to jump on?
Thank you so much, Cody, for your time. Just a question about the fundraising aspect of this. So, I mean, you had mentioned that this was your first time in fundraising. What was your strategy behind it? I mean, like, did you have a few VCs that you wanted to target? Was there a specific, valuation that you were looking for? What was that strategy?
Yeah, so I did an angel round in 2018, a seed round in 2019, and then the A round this year. So I would say some founders go in with valuation and target amount right from the start. And I think that can be really helpful. I think I was a little bit more open-ended about it. When we did our angel round, it was, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, yeah, who wants to invest? We're gonna work hard and try to make something great out of this. When the second time came, and there's a lot of interesting nuances with that. Some folks would tell me like, raise more money because it'll show that you're really ambitious. Other folks would say, raise a small amount. Say you start out by, planning to raise a small amount. So then if you say you're raising 500K and then you already have 400K, then, people feel like, oh, wow, this round is going to close and this looks really promising, and 500K can easily turn into 1 million if the interest keeps piling in. So there's really not one right answer out there. So this past time, we wanted to do a Series A, and you will see typical ranges for a Series A. So I felt like for a Series A it was 8 to 12, though there's a lot of A's that are more than that or less than that. So we ended up doing that range. We did 12, and then we've always been pretty lean and cash efficient. So I think I said 2 to 3 million for the seed round of doing 2.
Very interesting. And like when it came to like your angel and like your seed round, I mean, did you like cold email investors and say, hey, I mean, here are like what the metrics look like, here's what we're doing, would you be interested? I mean, was that the way in which that you did that, or like did you already have like a you had like a network built out prior to that?
Yeah, I would say I had the network that I used were my friends who had raised before or were VCs before, usually at an associate level at that time. And basically I would just ask like, hey, here's what I'm thinking about building, or here's what I am building. What do you think? Can I raise off of this? Any feedback? And then I would ask, who might that you can introduce me to? And then, I basically sought those introductions around every place that I could find them. And so for the angel round, I think I got introed to probably like a good handful, 2 dozen VCs. Most VCs, I think actually all institutional VCs passed on bounce in the angel round. And then our angel round came from 3 main sources in the end. One was, I'm trying to remember, it's been a while. I did a podcast on how I raised it, it's called, and I go into detail on all of it. But there's actually one customer that used Bounce and reached out and said, "Oh, can I give you some product feedback? I used Bounce in New York. This was really cool." And so his name was Nikhil Raj. We sat down for coffee one day. He gave me all this product feedback. I was writing it furiously because it was such good feedback. And then at the end, he said, this is really cool. I would love to put a check in. So he put in $20K. And then he also said, I can intro you to some other folks. He introduced us to this guy named Vijay Ulal, who's a Silicon Valley veteran. He worked at Fairchild Semiconductor and Intel and some of those OG companies. Yeah. And Vijay wrote us the biggest check for that round. And so thanks to that customer, that led to Nikhil, that led to about a third of the round getting done. I also went on the Pitch podcast, which is like Shark Tank, but on a podcast, and the investors are like more tech and VC investors as opposed to Sharky, so to speak. And so on that podcast, I had 2 investors off of that invested, and then introed me to a few other people. And then the third category, I think I had some folks in my network that I knew. I think some other founders introduced me to some folks, and then the money came in from there. Some checks came in from there. So we really pieced together the angel round from, I think it was 30 different investors, which is a lot of work. If you could raise from one firm, it's way easier. Coordinating 30 people to wire money, especially when you're so early on that you don't have any other team support to help with that, is pretty gnarly. So, but the folks have been great, and these are the folks that really took a bet on us early on. So really grateful for all of them.
Thanks so much, Cody.
Yeah, that's great. I wish the Everything Marketplaces Syndicate would have been around then. Awesome. We're going to try to get let's see, one or two more questions in. Hey, Namu, do you want to jump on?
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's super inspiring. My question is around, you mentioned it, but I think it's really cool that your user led to the investor, but I'm curious as to like what they saw in your business that a lot of VCs said no initially. Like they probably saw something in Bounce that other professional investors didn't see, and kind of curious as to like how that evolved and whether that impacted your long-term vision, like as you raise this round. Like I'm curious as to like what you sold the new investors on the future of Bounce with.
Yeah, so I would pitch all investors the big vision. And I think early on, VCs would say, too low frequency with low transaction size, or like, how big is this market really, or things like that. And I think the angels that came on board, we just had the chance to like I had the chance to get to know them a little bit more. Nikhil used the product, and he just, having used it himself, he just saw like what this could become, and he saw the immediate need for it. I think VCs that kind of their calendars are just filled up with pitch after pitch after pitch. It's more, especially if I didn't have a pre-existing relationship with them, it's more like, okay, this doesn't check all those boxes, so we're going to pass. Whereas an angel who can kind of get a little bit more hands-on, or maybe is a little bit more in network, and we'll just have that kind of higher trust from the start because they know you. In this case, Nikhil didn't know me, but we got to know each other on a customer company level first. I feel like the more hands-on time was really helpful. And I think, why was fundraising easy this last time? I think the vision always checked the box of big vision. But then the traction and the amount of growth, I think really was a strong signal. And then also what I heard from Andrew at A16Z was, the fact that we slogged it through for so many years, that we survived the pandemic. I think that kind of really signaled to folks that, hey, we're going to build this company, whether other people believe in it or not. And like the persistence and perseverance, and the like, we're doing this, come along for the ride, or not. Like I think it kind of leads to the inevitability of like, yeah, we're going to build something big. And we stood the test of time. We stood the test of the pandemic, and a lot of challenges. And so that just shows, we'll keep going with any other challenges, because it'll be hard to have a challenge as big as this last one.
Thank you.
I think that's a really great point you actually mentioned about the pandemic, something that no one's really brought up, but I think, just a sign of testament to, some of the founders and teams, that have kind of made it through. So cool. We're going to get one last question if we can. Hey, Chris, do you want to jump on?
Sure. Thanks. Hi, Cody. Thanks for joining. I was kind of noticing just right on the bounce page, it talks about starting from about $6. And we're working on a marketplace that deals with pretty small transactions. My first, swag at this, we're pre-product, so we're building it right now in pre-revenue. Well, yeah, all that. But our transaction amount is going to be maybe $15 to $20. And so our take rate, I've got a plug of 15%. I got to pull something out of the air, but trying to balance between pushing up how much take rate I have, the affordability to the buyer side, with the profitability of such a small number. I'm guessing you have a very similar issue here, where a backpack for a very short storage time is a very small number, and the 2.9% is probably not a big deal, but it's that 30 cents or whatever that really takes a chunk. How are you dealing with this? Have you changed and evolved your model? What thoughts can you provide there?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of things there. So just to kind of restate it all, with lower transaction sizes, how do you make the economics work? I had a friend who started a company, and their take rate was something like 10%. And then Stripe fees, as you mentioned, Chris, are 2.9% plus 30 cents. And so if your take rate's 10% and Stripe's getting, half of that or 40% of that, it does leave you with a little. And so for something that is where that is a risk, I would look at, are there subscription options? Are there, if something is that cheap, maybe you can get someone on a $20 a month subscription, which is a low amount, or something. In terms of the 30 cents piece, that is hard to avoid until you get bigger. Once you get to a certain size of monthly revenue, maybe it's 158,000 a month, I forgot what it is, of GMV, then you can actually negotiate with Stripe different pricing. And so you can actually bring that 30 cents down, or you can go to an interchange plus model where you just take the credit card fees plus the Stripe markup, which is much more complicated, but it really helps with that 30 cents piece. So just know that eventually you can renegotiate that pricing. For Bounce, it actually hasn't been too big of a deal because although the price for us is $6 a bag, the average transaction is 3 bags, so that's $18. And then our take rate being around 50%, we might make $9 on the average transaction net. And so for us, the economics actually work out. But those are some of the considerations for if it fits a little tight.
Okay, thank you.
One of the good marketplace questions to wrap it up with. So right before we wrap it up, though, I did want to ask a question. If that's if you could go back to right before you started Bounce, what would you tell yourself about marketplaces?
I would say one thing I've learned about is the idea of the hard side of the marketplace, which Andrew Chen talks about in his book, The Cold Start Problem. And the hard side of the marketplace, that concept really talks about how, one of the sides of the marketplace is usually harder than the other. And you want to focus on that one and really serve that side. For Uber, it's the driver side. And if you can just nail that, then it's just much easier to build the marketplace. So, I feel like as an early founder, it was just like, yeah, how do I make this all work? How do I I'm starting with nothing. How do I just make something? So you're not thinking too strategic yet because, you're kind of at the birthing of it all. So that is one thing. It's just really think strategically about that piece. Actually, the other giant nugget I wish I knew earlier, and this one's actually even bigger. This one I've thought about a lot since. I read a tweet, maybe it was from Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn. He said, first-time founders obsess over product, second-time founders obsess over distribution. And that was definitely true for me. In the beginning, it was just how do I build a great product? But without distribution, it doesn't, you haven't built a business. And so I learned about distribution later on in the company in building Bounce. And I think if I really nailed distribution earlier on, and in our case, the organic search is the biggest channel for us. If we started baking that in earlier, we could have had more traction sooner. So yeah, second time founders think more about distribution. I wish I knew that when I was starting.
Yeah, that's a great way to wrap it up. So most of us here are all just nodding and agreeing on that. So for sure. So, well, cool. Well, thanks again for taking the time to join us. And just last but not least, before we wrap things up completely, time for a quick plug. Where can we keep up with you at?
Yeah. So I'm on Twitter only a little bit. I'm getting on it a little bit more, but it's just my name, Cody Candee. Candee is spelled with 2 E's at the end, Candee. So yeah, I keep an eye on things there, and you can reach me there.
Awesome. I'll include it in the recording of this, and you'll get a lot of new marketplace founder followers. So
sounds
cool.
Good.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us here today, and thanks everyone for the great questions.